Selling in a Crisis. 55 Ways to Stay Motivated and Increase Sales in Volatile Times. By Jeb Blunt. Comprehensive Summary. Introduction. Selling in a Crisis by Jeb Blunt addresses the specific challenges salespeople face during periods of economic turbulence, market disruption, and widespread uncertainty. Drawing on his extensive experience as a sales trainer, consultant, and author of multiple sales books, including Fanatical Prospecting, Blunt provides a practical handbook designed to help sales professionals not merely survive but thrive during volatile times. The book acknowledges that crisis periods, whether economic recessions, industry disruptions, or global events like pandemics, create unique obstacles for salespeople, including heightened buyer risk aversion, elongated sales cycles, budget freezes, and the psychological toll of rejection and uncertainty. Rather than offering a single comprehensive methodology, Blunt presents 55 specific, actionable strategies organized into key categories addressing mindset, activity management, customer engagement, and advanced selling techniques adapted for crisis conditions. The book's underlying philosophy contends that while crises undeniably present difficulties, they simultaneously create opportunities for sales professionals who adapt effectively, maintain disciplined activity levels, and demonstrate authentic value to customers navigating their own challenges. For salespeople facing the turbulence and anxiety that accompanies market disruption, Selling in a Crisis offers both tactical guidance and psychological resilience strategies designed to transform threatening conditions into opportunities for differentiation and market share gains. Overview of the book. Blunt structures his work as a practical field guide rather than a theoretical treatise, organizing 55 specific strategies into interconnected categories that collectively address the primary challenges of selling during volatile times. The book begins with mindset strategies for managing the psychological and emotional challenges that often derail sales performance during crises, including fear management, perspective shifting, and resilience building. It then explores activity management approaches for maintaining productivity despite disruption, addressing both macro-level planning and day-to-day execution discipline. The central portions examine customer engagement strategies recalibrated for crisis conditions, including communications adjustments, value proposition refinement, and relationship deepening when in-person interaction may be limited. Advanced sections cover negotiation and closing techniques adapted for risk-averse environments, competitive displacement strategies for gaining market share during industry contraction, and long-term resilience building for sustained performance across multiple crisis cycles. Throughout these categories, Blunt balances immediate tactical guidance with strategic perspective, providing both quick implementation techniques for pressing challenges and foundational approaches for long-term advantage. The book concludes with guidance on post-crisis transitions, helping salespeople leverage relationships and momentum developed during turbulent periods into sustainable growth as conditions stabilize. While acknowledging the serious challenges crises present, Blunt's consistently optimistic, action-oriented tone emphasizes opportunity identification and proactive response rather than passive victimhood or mere survival until conditions improve. Key concepts in Selling in a Crisis. The crisis mental game. Psychological resilience in turbulent times. Blunt begins by addressing what he considers the most critical factor in crisis selling success: the mental and emotional discipline required to maintain effectiveness despite heightened stress, uncertainty, and rejection. He introduces several fundamental mindset principles, including the locus of control concept, focusing exclusively on factors within one's influence rather than external conditions that cannot be changed. Blunt provides specific techniques for managing fear responses, including fear-setting exercises that objectively evaluate worst-case scenarios, reducing the paralysis that comes from catastrophic thinking, and structured self-talk patterns that interrupt negative spirals. He addresses the particular challenge of rejection management during crises, when hearing no becomes more frequent and often more emotionally charged, providing psychological frameworks that separate professional outcomes from personal identity. Blunt emphasizes what he calls emotional self-leadership, the practice of consciously choosing one's emotional states rather than allowing external circumstances to dictate internal experiences. He provides practical routines for emotional management, including morning mindset rituals, midday reset practices, and evening reflection protocols that maintain psychological resilience. Throughout this section, Blunt balances acknowledgement of the genuine difficulties crises present with empowering perspectives that prevent these challenges from becoming self-fulfilling prophecies of failure. The psychological strategies establish a foundation for the tactical approaches that follow, based on Blunt's contention that the primary differentiator between crisis sales winners and losers is mental discipline rather than market conditions that affect all competitors similarly. The rule of thirds and strategic time allocation. Blunt introduces what he calls the rule of thirds, a strategic framework for time allocation during crisis periods that challenges conventional reactive approaches to market disruption. This principle suggests dividing selling time into three distinct categories: 1/3 dedicated to existing customer protection and expansion, 1/3 to active pipeline opportunities, and 1/3 to prospecting for new business. Blunt argues that this balanced approach prevents the common crisis mistakes of either excessive focus on existing customers, creating future pipeline gaps, or desperate over-prospecting, while neglecting viable current opportunities. For each time category, he provides specific activity guidance recalibrated for crisis conditions, protecting existing customers through proactive value verification and relationship deepening rather than passive order taking, managing pipeline opportunities through heightened stakeholder mapping and risk reduction approaches, and prospecting with messaging that acknowledges current challenges while highlighting stability or cost-saving benefits. Blunt addresses the particular challenge of maintaining this balanced allocation when crisis pressures push toward reactive rather than strategic responses, providing specific planning tools and accountability mechanisms. He emphasizes that the rule of thirds is particularly valuable during volatile periods when emotional reactions typically skew time allocation toward comfort activities, like servicing existing accounts, rather than higher discomfort, higher value activities like prospecting. Throughout this discussion, Blunt demonstrates how strategic time allocation during crisis periods creates both immediate resilience and post-crisis advantage through pipeline development, while competitors remain defensively focused. The pipeline principle, activity discipline when results lag. Blunt examines what he calls the pipeline principle, the critical importance of maintaining consistent prospecting and opportunity development activities despite the elongated sales cycles and delayed results characteristic of crisis periods. He explains that crisis conditions typically extend the delay between activity and results, creating dangerous psychological traps where salespeople reduce productive activity due to lack of immediate reinforcement, further exacerbating future performance gaps. Blunt provides specific frameworks for maintaining disciplined activity focus when results lag, including activity-based rather than results-based goal setting, shorter-term activity measurement cycles, and recognition systems that reward process adherence rather than just outcomes. He addresses the particular challenge of prospecting motivation during crises, when rejection rates typically increase while conversion rates decrease, creating discouragement that reduces the very activity most needed. Blunt introduces several prospecting approaches recalibrated for crisis environments, including vertical specialization to increase relevance, problem-centric rather than solution-centric messaging, and multi-touch cadences that recognize lengthened decision cycles. He emphasizes the paradoxical opportunity that crisis prospecting presents. While total opportunity volume may decrease, the reduced competitive presence caused by others' prospecting avoidance creates openings for market share gains by those maintaining disciplined outreach. Throughout this discussion, Blunt balances acknowledging the genuine difficulty of maintaining activity discipline during discouraging periods with practical frameworks for sustaining the pipeline development essential for both current resilience and post-crisis advantage. Customer engagement recalibrated for crisis conditions. Blunt explores how effective customer engagement fundamentally changes during crisis periods, requiring significant adjustments to communication approaches, value framing, and relationship development techniques. He identifies several critical shifts in buyer psychology during turbulent times: heightened risk sensitivity that makes change more threatening, increased scrutiny of non-essential purchases, compressed decision authority to fewer stakeholders, and elevated emotional states, including fear and uncertainty. For each shift, Blunt provides specific engagement adaptations, including risk reduction communication frameworks, ROI articulation methodologies calibrated for crisis financial metrics, and stakeholder mapping techniques for navigating centralized decision processes. He addresses the particular challenge of establishing trust during crises when in-person engagement may be limited, providing virtual relationship-building approaches that create connection despite physical distance. Blunt emphasizes what he calls empathetic selling, the critical importance of genuine understanding and acknowledgement of customer challenges before solution presentation, while warning against common crisis mistakes like commiseration that reinforces negative perspectives or premature problem-solving before establishing relationship foundation. He provides specific questioning frameworks designed for crisis environments, including financial impact exploration, priority shifting assessment, and decision process mapping in changed approval landscapes. Throughout this discussion, Blunt demonstrates how crisis conditions, while challenging, create opportunities for differentiation through customer engagement that meaningfully addresses actual situations rather than maintaining pre-crisis approaches that appear tone-deaf to current realities. Value proposition transformation, from nice to have to essential. Blunt examines how effective value propositions must transform during crisis periods, shifting from growth-oriented, future-focused benefits toward stability, risk reduction, and immediate financial impact. He provides a systematic framework for crisis value proposition development, beginning with comprehensive reassessment of how the offering specifically addresses heightened customer priorities during turbulent times, including cost reduction, operational stability, regulatory compliance, competitive defense, and workforce productivity. For each value category, Blunt offers specific articulation methodologies, including before/after comparisons, quantified impact projections, and implementation timeframe compression that acknowledges crisis urgency. He addresses the common crisis challenge of selling non-essential products or services, providing reframing approaches that connect seemingly discretionary offerings to critical business continuity, risk management, or cost reduction priorities. Blunt emphasizes the importance of concrete, tangible value articulation during crises when abstract or future-focused benefits lose persuasiveness, providing quantification methods for previously unquantified advantages. He introduces what he calls crisis-specific proof points, case studies and references specifically selected to demonstrate solution effectiveness under similar turbulent conditions rather than generic success stories from stable periods. Throughout this discussion, Blunt demonstrates how thoughtful value proposition transformation can actually increase offering relevance during crises rather than merely defending existing positioning, creating opportunities for sales growth despite challenging market conditions by directly addressing the change criteria through which buyers evaluate all purchases during uncertainty. Shortening the distance, accelerating sales cycles during delays. Blunt addresses the common crisis challenge of elongated sales cycles, providing specific strategies for maintaining momentum and shortening the distance between opportunity identification and closed business despite institutional delays. He introduces the concept of the micro-close, breaking complex sales processes into smaller, more achievable commitments that maintain forward movement when complete solutions face approval barriers. For each sales process stage, Blunt provides specific acceleration techniques recalibrated for crisis conditions, discovery approaches that quickly identify critical pain points rather than comprehensive assessments, proposal structures featuring modular options at various investment levels rather than single solution presentations, stakeholder engagement strategies that preemptively address likely objections before formal review processes. He addresses the particular challenge of maintaining momentum when formal buying processes pause, providing alternative engagement approaches that deliver value and build relationships despite procurement delays. Blunt emphasizes what he calls removing the white space, eliminating gaps between sales interactions that allow momentum to dissipate. Through disciplined follow-up systems, value-adding touchpoints, and strategic use of deadlines that create urgency even within constrained purchasing environments. He provides specific guidance for navigating common crisis-specific obstacles, including budget freezes, heightened approval requirements, and postponed projects, offering creative alternatives that enable partial progress rather than complete stalls. Throughout this discussion, Blunt balances realistic acknowledgement of institutional constraints during crises with practical approaches that prevent these legitimate challenges from becoming excuses for pipeline stagnation. Competitive displacement. Market share capture during industry contraction. Blunt explores strategies for capturing market share during crisis periods when overall industry spending contracts but competitive vulnerability creates displacement opportunities. He introduces a systematic framework for identifying and converting competitive displacement targets, beginning with strategic selection of competitors most likely weakened by crisis conditions due to financial instability, service degradation, talent exodus, or solution irrelevance in changed environments. For each displacement scenario, Blunt provides specific approaches: financial vulnerability exploitation through risk reduction offers and flexible terms, service gap targeting through high-touch relationship development, talent transition leverage through hiring competitor refugees who bring client relationships, and solution relevance, contrasting that highlights crisis-specific capabilities competitors lack. He addresses the ethical dimensions of displacement strategy, distinguishing between predatory approaches that damage industry credibility and legitimate value-focused alternatives that genuinely benefit customers making necessary changes. Blunt emphasizes the importance of what he calls displacement without disparagement, winning competitive business based on own strengths rather than competitor criticism, particularly valuable during crises when marketplace trust becomes fragile. He provides specific guidance for navigating common displacement challenges, including long-term contracts, switching costs, and relationship inertia, offering creative solutions that reduce transition barriers. Throughout this discussion, Blunt demonstrates how crisis periods, while challenging for all market participants, create unique opportunities for market share gains that would be unavailable during stable periods when both customer switching inclination and competitor vulnerability remain low. Virtual selling mastery. Engagement excellence despite physical distance. Blunt addresses the particular challenges of virtual selling, often necessitated by crisis conditions that limit physical movement, providing comprehensive frameworks for maintaining engagement effectiveness despite the constraints of digital interaction. He introduces fundamental principles of virtual influence, including